I never thought that within just 1 hour, my entire life could turn upside down. That evening, I had planned a special date. Linda, the woman I loved, had agreed to spend the weekend with me at a seaside resort. Everything seemed perfect. Candlelight, the sound of waves crashing, and the promise of a bright future. But I had no idea that by the end of the night, everything would shatter. After dinner, Linda said she needed to step out for some fresh air. She never came back. Calls went unanswered, texts ignored. At first, I thought she had an urgent matter or perhaps something unexpected had happened. But when I asked the hotel staff, I discovered that Linda had left with another man, none other than Mark Lavalier, a well-known businessman I once admired. When I heard the news, it felt like a dagger piercing my heart. I returned to our room, staring at the dining table where 2 glasses of wine remained untouched. The room, once filled with warmth and anticipation, now felt cold and empty, just like my soul. I couldn't sleep, lying awake trying to comprehend what had just happened. Linda had abandoned me, without a word, without hesitation. She chose fame and glamour over the love we had built. The next morning, I drove away from the hotel alone. On the way back, I stopped at a small cafe where Linda and I had shared happy moments during past trips. The owner, an elderly woman with kind eyes, asked, "Where's Linda?" I forced a smile and replied, "She's gone with someone else." Her gaze softened with sympathy. "Sometimes you have to let go of things that were never truly yours," she said. Her words resonated deeply. When I got home, I began packing my belongings. I knew I couldn't stay in the house, which was now filled with memories of us. I called my parents to let them know I'd be moving closer to them for a while to regain my footing. Before leaving, I withdrew all the money from our joint account. It wasn't an act of revenge. It was self-preservation. I knew Linda no longer deserved my trust. That afternoon, Linda called. Her voice was panicked, pleading for me to answer. When I finally did, she cried and begged for forgiveness, saying it was just a moment of weakness and that she wanted to come back and make things right. Calmly, I responded, "Linda, you destroyed everything in one night. There's nothing left to return to. I wish you the best." Then I hung up. In the days that followed, I started a new chapter. I moved to a different city, found a fulfilling job, and devoted more time to myself. Over time, I met Sarah, a kind and genuine woman. Sarah not only restored my faith in love, but also helped me realize that the pain of the past was merely a lesson. As for Linda, I later heard that her relationship with Mark didn't last long. She returned to live a quiet and lonely life. Sometimes, karma has a way of settling scores without anyone lifting a finger. Life arranges itself so that everything falls into place. I no longer harbor resentment toward Linda. Instead, I feel grateful she left, giving me the chance to rebuild my life with someone who truly deserves it. Life with Sarah began like a gentle ray of sunshine piercing through cloudy days. She never rushed me. She listened and truly understood the pain I had endured. Our conversations made me realize that love isn't just about passion or sweet promises, but about sharing, empathy, and enduring together day by day. One evening, as we were walking along the lakeside, Sarah stopped, looked at me, and asked, "Do you still hold any anger toward Linda?" Her question caught me off guard, not because it hurt, but because I realized it had been a long time since I thought of Linda with any resentment. I answered, "No, I'm grateful now because she helped me see who really matters in my life." Sarah smiled, her eyes shining with a quiet confidence that we were on the right path together. A few years later, Sarah and I had a small wedding with only family and close friends. It was a meaningful day, not flashy, but filled with joy and love. During the wedding, my father gave a speech. "My son has been through a lot, but seeing him smile like this today, I know all the wounds have healed." My career gradually became more stable and successful. Sarah and I bought a small house with a backyard. Every weekend, we would plant flowers, care for the garden, and dream about the children we'd have one day. Life was peaceful, quiet, and everything I had ever hoped for. One day, while walking through a park near our home, I unexpectedly saw Linda. She was sitting alone on a bench, her eyes distant as if deep in thought. I hesitated for a moment, but decided to approach her. "Hello, Linda," I said, keeping my voice calm. She looked up, startled, with a mix of surprise and unease in her expression. "Hi," she replied softly. Linda looked very different, thinner, with hair that no longer had its former shine. "How have you been?" I asked, not out of curiosity, but out of basic politeness. She forced a faint smile. "I'm okay. And you?" "I'm good. I'm married now," I said, unable to hide the pride in my voice. She nodded slightly. "Congratulations." After a moment of silence, she added, "I'm sorry for everything. I was wrong, and I know there's no way to undo it." I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I looked in her eyes and felt no anger or bitterness, just a sense of closure, as though I were turning the final page of an old book. "I forgave you a long time ago," I said. "Because of you, I learned what truly matters in life." Linda didn't say anything more, just gave a faint smile, but I could see the relief in her expression. We exchanged a few polite words before parting ways. As I walked away, I felt an incredible sense of peace. Life went on, but that encounter served as a reminder that the past is just the past, and it no longer holds any power over my present. A year later, Sarah and I welcomed our first daughter into the world. Holding her in my arms, I couldn't help but think about how miraculous life is. Sometimes, the losses that seem insurmountable are actually the doors to a better future. I no longer think about Linda or the scars of the past. Now, my focus is entirely on the present and the blessings ahead. In the end, the most important thing is learning to love yourself and cherishing those who truly deserve it. As time passed, our little family grew closer and closer. Sarah remained my ideal companion, not just a devoted wife, but also my best friend. Our first daughter, Emma, grew up surrounded by endless love. One lazy weekend afternoon, as I sat on a chair in the garden, Emma ran over and tugged at my hand. "Daddy, tell me a story from when you were little," she said with bright, curious eyes. I chuckled and lifted her onto my lap. Sarah stepped out of the kitchen, carrying 2 glasses of lemonade, and joined us on the bench. "Daddy has a sad story," I began, but it led to a happier ending than I ever dreamed of. Emma tilted her head, her big, round eyes filled with curiosity. "What is it?" I glanced at Sarah. She smiled back at me, her eyes gentle and encouraging me to continue. "Once upon a time, I thought someone very special would stay with me forever. But I realized that not everyone is meant to stay in our lives. Sometimes, the person you love the most isn't the one who's best for you." Emma asked innocently. "Then what happened, Daddy?" "Then I met your mom," I said with a warm smile. "Your mom showed me that true love isn't just about the feelings you have in the beginning. It's about patience, honesty, and sharing every moment, day by day." Emma looked at her mom, then back at me, and beamed. "So you and Mommy lived happily ever after, right?" Sarah laughed softly and answered for me. "Yes, but to live happily ever after, we always have to try our best, love each other, and understand one another." Life felt complete, yet little challenges still came along, as life often tests us all. One day, I received an invitation to attend a major business conference. It was an incredible opportunity to expand my career, but it also meant being away from my family for an extended period for the first time. Sarah, without hesitation, encouraged me. "Go for it, Emma, and I will be waiting for you. This is a chance you deserve." At the conference, I unexpectedly ran into Mark Lavalier, the man who had once taken Linda from me. Mark no longer looked as charismatic as he once did. He seemed worn out, older than his years. During our conversation, Mark unexpectedly admitted, "I know I hurt you in the past, but strangely, now I find myself envying you." I didn't respond immediately, offering only a polite smile. Our conversation was brief, but his words lingered in my mind. Perhaps not everyone is lucky enough to find true love in their lifetime. I realized that what I have now is more valuable than any success or fleeting glory from the past. When I returned home after the conference, Emma ran out to greet me with a tight hug. Sarah stood there, smiling, as if all my exhaustion melted away in an instant. I bent down to kiss Emma on the forehead and pulled Sarah into a warm embrace. Life may be full of twists and turns, but with a loving family and genuine love, I knew I had found what truly mattered most. The lessons from past pain didn't just make me stronger. They reminded me to cherish what I have now. Happiness isn't a destination. It's the journey I'm walking with the people I love most by my side. Our life continued to flow in peace, filled with small joys. Emma was growing up quickly, a smart and energetic little girl. Sarah and I often joked that Emma was life's gift to us, a way of making up for the wounds of the past. One day, as I was working in my home office, Sarah knocked on the door and stepped in. She was holding an envelope. "There's a letter for you," she said, placing it on the desk with a smile before stepping out. I opened the envelope and froze when I saw the name on the card. Linda. The letter was short, but each word seemed to rewind time. "Dear, my name, I know I have no right to disturb you, but there's something I've held in my heart for far too long and feel the need to say. Over the years, I've lived with regret and guilt for what I did to you. Today, I just want to say thank you for loving me, and I'm sorry for not cherishing that love. I don't expect a reply, only that you live a happy life, just as you deserve. Linda." I set the letter down, and a mix of emotions stirred within me. It wasn't pain or resentment like it once was. Instead, I felt a sense of calm. Linda had been out of my life for so long, but now I realized that both of us had changed and learned valuable lessons from the past. I tucked the letter into a drawer, took a deep breath, and stepped out of my office. Sarah was in the kitchen, preparing dinner with Emma. I walked over and hugged her from behind. "What's going on?" Sarah asked, surprised as she turned to look at me. "Nothing," I said, smiling. "I just feel so lucky to have you and Emma." Sarah looked at me with gentle eyes, as if she understood everything. In the years that followed, life became busier. Emma entered middle school, and Sarah and I began considering opening a small cafe, a dream Sarah had always cherished. With my support, the cafe, named Home, officially opened. It quickly became a favorite meeting spot for old friends and neighbors in the community. One afternoon, while I was helping Sarah organize the counter, the cafe door swung open, and a familiar figure stepped in. It was Linda. She hesitated, standing at the entrance for a moment before walking to the counter. Sarah and I exchanged glances, and she gave me a gentle nod, silently telling me she trusted me to handle it. "Hello," Linda said softly, her voice as gentle as I remembered. "Hi, Linda," I replied with a smile. We sat down at a small corner table in the cafe. Linda shared that she had started over and was now working for a charity organization. She no longer had the glamorous look she once did, but she seemed more at peace. "I wanted to thank you," she said. "Thank you for forgiving me. It gave me the courage to move forward." I smiled and replied, "Life is a way of teaching us lessons. I should thank you too. Because of you, I found my true happiness." Linda looked at me with gratitude in her eyes. After that meeting, we didn't keep in touch, but I knew we had both finally closed the chapter that once felt unfinished. On a weekend evening, as my family sat around the dinner table, Emma suddenly announced, "Mom, Dad, I want to open a cafe like Mom someday." Sarah laughed. "Well, you'll have to learn how to make good coffee first." "I'll learn from Dad," Emma replied, making us both laugh. I looked at Sarah, then at Emma. In that moment, I realized that life doesn't have to be perfect. All it needs is love and the willingness to share it. The pains of the past are now just pieces of a puzzle, helping me build the warm present I cherish today. And I know true happiness isn't something distant or unattainable. It's found in the simplest moments, right here with the people I love most. Years later, I sat by the window, watching the soft golden sunlight filter through the trees outside. Emma had grown up, confidently stepping into the world with her big dreams. Sarah and I, now with streaks of gray in our hair, remained by each other's side, inseparable companions and soulmates. One day, while tidying up an old room, I stumbled upon Linda's letter in a drawer. The words no longer stirred any emotions other than gratitude. I carefully folded it, and placed it in a memory box alongside family photos. Life had taught me that everything happens for a reason. Sometimes we must endure pain to truly understand the value of happiness. If it weren't for Linda's betrayal back then, I might never have met Sarah or had the happy family I have today. Now, looking back, all I feel is a profound sense of peace. I stood up and walked out to the garden, where Sarah was tending to her flowers. Watching her radiant smile under the sunlight, I thought to myself, this is the most beautiful ending I could have ever hoped for. What do you think about this story? Have you ever experienced a loss that seemed insurmountable at the time, only to realize later that it was an opportunity to build a better life? If you were in the protagonist's shoes, how would you react when Linda came back to apologize? Do you believe that everything happens for a reason, and that every hardship leads to a valuable life lesson? Feel free to share your story or thoughts. Life, even with its sorrowful chapters, holds hidden joys and meaning when we take a step back and reflect. Red Heart,